Hello. So it's been about a month since I've done anything with these videos. If I was sick, I don't know if you remember seeing the last few videos that was posted. I was sick. It was hard to talk without having a coughing fit. And then, a pandemic happened and I got busy trying to figure out how to make everything work for, my job is teaching and all of that stuff. But I think I'm on plan E as a virtual, I'm teaching in a virtual classroom setting, with some kind of sometimes iffy internet connectivity. And so I think I'm okay with plan E right now. So I can kind of start putting some focus onto this. So this is where we left off. And there's all kinds of things that need to be fixed on this. I've been going through the processes, as you remember on the last videos, of doing what he's doing. Obviously, some things are not quite matching up, and this is kind of like the debugging process. And I'll show you some things that are already obviously wrong with this compared to what he's doing on the actual tutorials for Sumerian. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. So I'm going to hide this so it goes away. And it's kind of funny what it's doing. It's not the intent, but it's kind of funny nonetheless. So I'm going to hit play down here. So the ball rolls and, it's going to go into a bucket, the blue bucket. So some things that are already wrong, it's like you can see the ball, it's like how it's starting to stick out through the bottom. It should not be sticking out through the bottom. So I believe that's a collider issue. Just the placement of my collider, if I had to guess. You can't really see it in the top, so it's like going down too far. It's going in the bucket, but it's like that, and it should not be. And you cannot see it here, which you should be. And another thing that's kind of funny is like if I hit the right arrow button, let me turn this around so you can see it. If I hit the right, let's see, do this too. Okay. If I hit the right arrow button, it should go to the right. It goes to the left. If I hit the left arrow button, it should go to the left, and it goes to the right. And you can see my ball falls out. So that's kind of funny. And then the collider on the wall is correct because it's not going past the wall. And I think my lighting is somewhere. I got my lighting a little mucked up because that's why it's white and so bright and just kind of the weird colorings. So there are obvious rooms for improvement on this, but it's really a lot of fun. So we're going to actually continue building on. If you are under the impression that when you're building these things, you're going to get it right the very first time around, you're going to be sorely disappointed. And that's how it's fun. That's how learning happens, is building and continue to learning as you build. So let's go ahead and go back into, let me get into the badge. Here it is. And we are on module 3, and we are going to start learning about the state machine. Now, the state machine is more or less a lot of JavaScript, but you don't have to know JavaScript because it's a very GUI, graphical user interface tool where you can, drag states, and you'll see it. I'm talking about here shortly. So the things that we'll be going over is behavior, states, and actions. A state machine is basically a tool in the Sumerian editor where you can create behaviors just like you would in JavaScript if you were actually writing code. But the state machine is a tool that you can do it, so you don't have to code. Behaviors are part of Sumerian that allows you the interactivity for dynamic changes. So let's go ahead and hit play on this, and I'm going to kind of do a fast forward on and then we'll go on while he's doing it.
In this video, we're going to look at the basics of the state machine. The state machine is the tool and the editor that creates behaviors. And behaviors are the fun part of Sumerian that allows you to add interactivity and some dynamic changes within your scene. If you remember, the end goal of this project is to create a VR scene where you take a game ball and drop it either in an orange bucket or in a blue bucket, and that'll then respawn the ball up at the top of the scene, and then or up at the top above the table, and it'll roll back towards you, and you continue to go through that training process. Now, the difference is that when you're trying to test this scene, you can't actually move the ball. You can't pick up the ball with your mouse and drop it into the buckets. So we have to have a different way to test it. So in this particular video, what we're going to do is being able to create a behavior that moves both buckets so we can still catch the ball as it rolls off the table. So this is a behavior that we're going to be creating really just for testing our scene and making sure that everything works properly, but it also works as a really great kind of introductory behavior to create. So with that, in this video, we're going to cover behaviors, states, and actions. So let's get started. All right, if you remember in the last video, what we did is we created these buckets, the blue and the orange bucket, and then we created some walls. These walls have colliders on them. The buckets all have colliders on them so that the ball can actually drop into the bucket and will be contained in the bucket. The ball will also run into the wall if it slips past the player, the user, and so the ball will be contained within this room. So that is what we did in the last video. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so we can slide both of these buckets back and forth. The reason for this is twofold. One is that we just want to have a simple behavior to create as an introduction to the state machine. The second reason is that for testing this scene, I can't use my mouse, using a PC, I can't use my mouse to pick up the ball and drop it into the orange bucket or blue bucket. I have to be in VR in order to do that, at least when we actually make that, when we enable this for VR. So to test it, what we need to be able to do is make it so we can move both, we can slide the buckets back and forth, it'll catch the ball, and then it'll continue on with the training simulator. So it's kind of as another way to figure out how to use state machine behaviors and also to test the scene to make sure it works. So again, this is not going to be a behavior that we use in VR, but it is going to be a good testing behavior and an introduction. So we're going to select our buckets entity over here in the entities panel. If I expand that, you see I have a blue bucket and an orange bucket. And I'm going to add a behavior in the state machine to this buckets because I want to move both of them together. And that's the whole reason why I join them or group them like this.
Okay, so let's see what he's doing. That's not mine. Oh, I need to minimize this. Okay, to get mine. I'm going to go ahead and put it in a separate window so I don't have to do that. And then go ahead and stop this because I can't do any edits while it's playing. Okay, so buckets. And remember, like you said, the blue and the red bucket, or whatever color you picked, is nested in an entity called buckets. So I click on buckets, and it looks like I've already done the state machine. Oopsie. So let's go ahead and want to remove that to kind of pick up where he's at. It maybe might help the right button go right and the left button go left.
So if you haven't added a state machine component, what you do is just click add component and then go to state machine. I already have it on there, so we're just going to go open up the state machine, and then there's no behaviors. So what we want to do is click the plus button to start a new behavior. We will have several behaviors in the scene, and so it's always good to.
Okay. So we're going to click on there, add a new behavior, like he did.
Name them appropriately so you can navigate between your behaviors, especially when you're troubleshooting and trying to figure out if there's an issue somewhere. Being able to navigate between behaviors is really helpful. So we'll name this one bucket move for PC because again, this is an.
Okay, so let's do that. Bucket move for PC.
Only a behavior that's going to be used when you're using this scene or playing the scene on the PC, not in a VR headset. Great. All right. Now, the way that the state machine works, this is the state machine. Here's the state graph, and the state machine is based on states and then actions that transition to various states. That sounds confusing, just hold tight and it'll make sense very, very soon. All right, so we have state 1 already in this behavior. If I have it selected, you see the properties or the actions attached to this right now, there's nothing. It's just called state 1. So we're going to first rename this, and we're going to call it no movement.
Okay. So we got the state. There's the grid for the state machine. If you don't see this for whatever reason, but you should, after you added the state, You should see it after you added that state machine on the right hand side. After you added this, you should see it. So I'm going to go back into here, and we're going to pick up where he was talking about. Where's it at? Okay, so we're going to click on state 1. We only got one state, and we were going to name it what were we going to name it? No movement. So on the selected state, the name is going to be no movement.
The states that we want to add to it are, or the actions we want to add to this is, and to do that, we click Add Action. The action we want for this, we actually want two actions, but we don't want both of the same, is search for key down. And then click Add or just press Enter.
Okay, so add action on the right-hand side and type in key down. And you can see what exactly it does. It listens for the key press and performs a transition. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, like, on click, or if you were on a mouse, or key down, I can't remember exact method it was, but whenever you do some sort of action, it's listening for that particular event. And like for this, is going to be wait for a key to be pressed down to do whatever action we're saying. So key down is what we're wanting. Hit add.
But the key down that we want to use is not the A key. You could use the A key, but I want to use my left arrow. So I'm going to click left arrow. And then.
Okay, so on the key, so we got no movement, key down. On the key, you don't type in what you're wanting. You just type in the key that you're wanting. And evidently the interface has changed. It says arrow left instead of his says left arrow. I guess that's a change in something. But you can see whenever I hit another key, it's going to change it. So again, you just want to type in, you want to press the key that you want to have the effect. So it would be the left arrow for this example here. And I keep hitting Alt and it changes that. Okay. And I'm just going to click on what I want to go to instead of hitting Alt. Okay.
I want to add another action, and I want to use the same one, key down. So I'll add that. Instead of A, I want to do right arrow.
Okay. So we're going to add another action, key down, which is already selected. So we're going to just hit add. And on this, we're going to do right arrow. Again, you just hit the key that you want, not spelling anything out, just the key that you want. So because of that, I have to look for this instead of clicking Alt Tab, which I usually do.
I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Oops. Zoom in. Now I'm going to add another state. I'm going to drag it over here. And I'm going to call this state blue bucket.
Okay. So we can zoom in. Which one is zoom? There it is. That's not zoom. That's as zoomy as it gets, evidently. But you guys can see it. It says on key arrow left down. So there's not going to be any movement whenever a key is pressed. In this example, it's going to be the left arrow and also on the right arrow down. So we're going to add a state, another state machine, and just it puts it right on top of the other one automatically. So you have to drag it out on top. And this is going to be named blue bucket.
Now I'm going to add another action by clicking Add Action. And the movement that I want to use, the action I want to use is this tween move. Now, what is tween move? Well, let's think about move.
Let's go ahead and add it, and then he can explain it. So add action, and we're going to look for tween move. And you can see it's a transition to the set location. So we're going to go ahead and click on that, hit add, and then let's let him explain it.
move is an action first that actually just moves an entity somewhere. So it changes the translation values, so the X, Y, and Z translation values. Now, a simple move action will move an entity from one location to another in one frame. So essentially, it'll be here and then it'll be here. That's not exactly what we want. We want to create an animation so it moves. You can see the change from one movement, from one location to another. That's what tween is. It's short for in between. So in between, the tween or in betweening is essentially showing the change from one location to another, and that's exactly what we want. Now, the tween bucket or the tween move we want is the translation. We want to be +1. We want to uncheck the relative checkbox. And the time that it's going to take, this is what's also different about the tween, is that you can decide how long it takes for this movement to take place. We don't want it to be, this is 1,000 milliseconds, that equals 1 second. We don't want it to be that long. We want it to be about 200 milliseconds. And the easing type is essentially, if you think about it, is does it go from one position to the next just very equally, very linear, or do you want it to kind of speed up and slow down? That's what the easing type is. So we're going to do quadratic in and out. So we'll have a quadratic move both as a...
Okay, so let's get that set up. So, boom, 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 boom. So the transition, he made that into a 1. And uncheck that. The time in seconds, looks like it's in seconds now instead of milliseconds. Let's do 0.2. And then he's changing this to quadratic. And out.
Starts movement and as it ends the movement. Let's see what it looks like in a second. The next action we want to add is a key up action. Now the key up action we want, because the blue button is on the left, we're going to use the left arrow. And again, we'll complete this.
Okay. And now we're going to add another action, and we're going to look for key up. So it listens for a key release and performs a transaction. So whenever it hears that whenever the event listener, or it's not necessarily event listener, but like it listens for the fact that the key comes back up, like you're not pressing it down anymore. And hit add. And we were going to do the left arrow on this.
This behavior, and then it'll make a lot more sense. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but to go the other direction. But we want to use the orange bucket. So what we're going to do, or make it so we move over to moving the orange bucket underneath the ball. But instead of starting from scratch and starting a new state and then adding pretty much these same actions to it, but with just some slightly different properties, all I'm going to do is click the blue bucket and then duplicate state.
Let's go ahead and do that. So click on blue bucket, duplicate state, and try to slide it over there. We're going to name this, mine's red. His is orange. Red bucket. And we'll be making some other changes as well.
And rename it orange bucket. Now instead of +1, I'm going to make it -1. I'll keep the 200 milliseconds quadratic in out. However, for the key up action, I don't want the left arrow. I want to use the right arrow. So I'm going to just put my cursor in.
Okay, so we're going to do -1. Now on this as XYZ, I'm not really all that great of understanding XYZ. For me, I usually figure it out as I play with it. And for this, it's going to be the right arrow. Oops, I keep hitting Alt. If I hit somewhere else, it should take me out of it. There we go. Okay.
Side of the text box and select the right arrow. There it is. Now, we have all the states set up the way we want. Now we just got to add transition. So essentially, this no movement state, if you notice, is set as the initial state. So when we enter the scene, when we press play, it'll be this entity, these buckets will be in the...
Okay, so we're getting ready to set up. So let's go ahead and look at new movement. He said it was the initial state, which is it is. So set as initial state. If you look on the other ones, it does not, like I need to select set as initial state. It's not by default. And same thing with the blue bucket. I need to set it as initial state. So this is set as, where'd it go? It's already set as initial state.
No movement state. It'll be waiting for us to either click the left arrow or the right arrow. When we click the right arrow, I'm going to select inside. You see, I'm going to select this action here, or this transition label, and I'm going to drag it over to the blue bucket because the left arrow is going to move the blue bucket underneath. And then when I release it, so when the left arrow is up, so on this key left arrow up, it will then go back to the no movement state.
Okay. So on the, it was the left one. Oh shoot, I messed that up. Look at that. See where it says Alt? That's where I kept hitting it. So it should be left arrow. So on the left arrow, on key left arrow, if you click on it and just drag on the left mouse button and hold on to the left mouse button, it should take you right into that. And then whenever you let go of the key or the button, the left arrow, it's going to go back to no movement.
Similarly, on the right arrow, I'm going to drag that over to the orange bucket state. And on the on key right arrow up, I'm going to bring it back to the no movement. Let's press play and see how this works.
So let's go ahead and do that as well. So on the right arrow, again, hold down on the left mouse button and drag it. And then on this, you move that back here to no movement. So let's see what he does when he hits play.
Hide the ball for right now because I don't really need that. And to hide entities, you just simply press this, the eye icon over here. So let's press play. Notice that no movement is highlighted with this green. As I select as I hold down the left arrow, it goes to the blue bucket. As I hold down to the right arrow, it goes to the orange bucket.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hide the ball like he did. So on the left-hand side where it says game ball, you see that looks like an eyeball. If you click on it, it's now hidden. So let's see if mine is somewhat decently set up. So hit play, and you can see, like he said, no movement is highlighted because there's no movement happening. And if I hit the right arrow button, it should move. Maybe I didn't have it backwards like I thought I did in the beginning. It should move the red bucket underneath to catch the ball, and it does. Okay, so I did not have it wrong in the beginning, just my thinking was wrong, but that's okay. So what it's doing is moving the red bucket. When I click on the right arrow, it's moving the red bucket more underneath the table, and when I click on the left arrow, it's moving the blue bucket more underneath the table. Okay, so I was not wrong whenever I started this. My thinking was wrong because it's been a month since I've done it.
So essentially, it is moving between those. So you see it transitioning between the no movement in the blue bucket or no movement in the orange bucket. That's depending on if I hold my right arrow down, it goes to the blue bucket. I'm still holding it. I mean, as soon as I release it up, it'll transition back to no movement where nothing actually happens. But if I select the right arrow and I hold that down, it'll transition to the orange bucket. It'll then move the orange bucket or both buckets over. And so the orange bucket is positioned underneath the table. And then when I release it, it'll return back to the no movement state. So this is a simple behavior to control our buckets within our scene. And again, this is only for testing our scene. All right, let's see how this works. I show the game ball so I can actually see it. And I'm going to press play and just catch it into one of the buckets. It doesn't really matter which one. So I'm going to slide over the orange bucket. There it is. Now if I move up, there it is. The ball is contained in the orange bucket. Now again, this is just a very simple behavior to
Okay, so I showed you in the beginning of this video, my colliders or something's not set up right because, I'll go ahead and stop this. Because my bucket is not staying in, or my ball is not staying in the bucket, but let's go ahead and do this again. Shoot. We can hide the state machine so we can have a bigger screen area by clicking on that little square or X, whatever. And so I'm going to go ahead and see the ball again. And I am going to hit play and watch my ball go in the bucket, but not necessarily do it right. So hit play. So I want to move the red bucket. So I hit the right arrow. If I got that right. And I completely missed. And there's a wall, as you can see. Again, my lighting's kind of screwed up, but you can see that there's a wall there. That's why I didn't go any further. So let's see if I can just stop it and start it again. Let's see if I can have a better view of how this is lined up. So I'm going to cheat and, oh, I can't do that while it's in play mode. Oh, it's not in play mode. Why are you not moving? You should move. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to go into play mode and see if it goes in the red bucket and see if that's screwed up too. Okay, that should go in the red bucket. Okay, so I can see it in the red bucket. So it's just a collider is off with my blue. Somehow I got the position of my collider off a little bit in the blue, but you can actually see it in the red bucket. So that makes me feel better. That makes me feel like, I'm somewhat know what I'm doing on this. And this is a lot of fun. I mean, I've been playing with this for a while. There's always new things it comes with as you're learning something new. So let's try to do this again, and let's see if what happens in the blue bucket. Just as a reminder, how that one's a little mucked up. So hit play. Gonna let it go in the blue bucket. Oopsie! Oh shoot! And you can see you don't see it, but you do see it sticking out on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. See that little dot there? That's the ball. See, they can get like too much. So just something about the position of it. So the collider is just a little offset. And the other bug that's in it. And sometimes it's just fun having the process and seeing what you do, because if everything worked perfectly the first time I did it, I would not learn nowhere near as much. Okay. So that's it for this particular video. Hopefully Plan E on virtual classrooms is going to stick until the end of the semester, and who knows when things are going to go back to normal, right? In the meantime, we can have fun playing and learning some cool stuff. Okay, let me know if you have any questions on anything. Thank you.